Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. I've got something really special for you here today. It's the 9.10 test server with all of the brand new Japanese heavy tanks. This video is quickly going to give you a rundown from the Tier 3 Type 91 Heavy all the way up until the Tier 10 Type 5 Heavy. Let you know what is special about each of the individual tanks and what you have to look forward to when 9.10 comes, probably in the next few weeks. The Japanese heavy tanks are big, and they have big guns as well, and lots of health. And what they lack in mobility, they more than make up for in armor. If you like heavy tanks, then stay tuned. I'm going to let you know everything that you need to know about the upcoming tech tree. Oh, and before I get started, did I mention they're pretty big? Yeah, that's right. That is a CDC next to me. You can go hull down on Tier 8 medium tanks. The CDC is not the smallest vehicle. And here is an IS-6 for scale. They're absolutely ridiculous. So let's start from the bottom and work our way to the top. We're looking at the Type 91 Heavy, a Tier 3 Japanese heavy tank. And I believe that makes the Type 91 Heavy the lowest tier heavy tank in the game. But if you're expecting it to have a lot of armor, you'll be disappointed. It's very mediocre. 20 at the front on the turret as well, 20 on the side, 20 at the back. This thing has paper armor, and even a T1 Cunningham is going to be challenging its armor. But its hit points aren't really too much better either. It's got 250 hit points, which is only 20 more than the PZ-1C, which is actually more heavily armored than the first heavy tank, well, the lowest tier heavy tank in the game. And so you'd be right to ask, well, what's special about this tank? Well, it does get 330 meters view range, which isn't terrible for Tier 3, and it does get this very nice 47mm. If we compare this, for example, to a very stereotypical Tier 3 tank such as the T-46, which kind of has the same kind of ideology behind it, we can see that its rate of fire is higher than if you use the 45mm on a T-46. Its penetration is greater, its alpha damage is greater, its accuracy is worse, but its aim time is better. And what that means is the Type 91 Heavy really needs to put its gun to use and pick apart its enemies quickly, because it's not going to have the health or the armor to fulfill that heavy tank role. So moving on, we can look at the Type 95 Heavy, and yeah, it does look like more of the same really. Its armor is 35 at the front, 30 at the side, and 25 at the rear, with the turret being 30, 25, 25, so nothing really too much to look at here. It does have 430 hit points, but to me that just screams of one-shots from Hetzers, one-shots from T-40s. I think this might be a very juicy, tasty snack for a high-explosive shell. Nevertheless, you do get a 7.5 centimeter gun that will be able to pick apart your enemies very quickly, a lot like a Type 91 Heavy. And so far, you might be a little bit disappointed with the Japanese heavy tanks, but don't tune off right now, and that's because as soon as you get to Tier 5, it gets real. Oh my word, look at this absolute ridiculous tank. And I must apologize, I'm not going to get the pronunciation of these tanks correct for now because I haven't been able to research it, but I'm going to be calling this the OI Experimental. Or maybe it should be the oh my gosh, what the hell is this tank? It weighs 3 times as much as the Tier 3 Japanese Heavy. It weighs over 100 tons, guys, 102 tons when it's fully equipped, and that enables you to use a super heavy spall liner, which will protect you from most high explosive shells, especially from ramming, and also will protect your crew 50% of the time from injuries. And finally, at Tier 5, you start to get some hit points, 700 hit points at Tier 5. And what's very interesting is the engine that's used in this tank goes all the way up the rest of the tree. As we can see here, the engine that's used in the Tier 5 is also the top engine in the Type 4 Heavy, which is the Tier 9 Japanese heavy tank. It has a 1,200 horsepower, which enables this to shift pretty much up to its top speed limit of 40 kilometers an hour, and this thing's also very nimble. It's got 24 degrees a second traverse speed, as well as hull armor that's very comparable to the KV-1. As an example here, we can see the KV-1 has 75, 75, and 70, and the Japanese gets the same, 75, 70, and 70. With 75, 75, and 75 on the turret armor, which is definitely worse than the KV-1, however. And I cannot wait to see what one of these tanks is going to do to anything up to a Tier 7 tank from ramming it. Imagine 102 tons with a spall liner and controlled impact going at 40 kilometers an hour into the enemy. It's going to be a sight to behold. And gun-wise, you're starting to get things that are much more impressive. This thing uses a 100mm gun, which is going to be very competitive. 130mm of penetration, 300 alpha damage, but you're not going to be very accurate, and you're going to have quite a lot of aim time. But a 6.19 round a minute rate of fire means that this will be able to pick things apart very quickly indeed. And I think the OI Experimental might become a fan favorite as a cleanup tank. So now we're going to move on to the true OI, and it doesn't really look too much like the OI experimental. Check this out. So unfortunately, the OI doesn't get to use all of the main guns. I call this tank Big Mama. Yeah, you guys might be able to figure out why. It weighs 152 tons, meaning that when it's fully equipped, it is just heavier than the Type 5 Heavy. And that makes the Tier 6 Japanese Heavy 20 tons heavier than the E100. It's absolutely mind-boggling. Now, this gets the same engine power as the rest of the tanks, and I'm not even going to mention that anymore, but that means that the horsepower to ton ratio of this tank is rather underwhelming. At 8 horsepower to ton, this thing isn't really going to shift, but it makes up for it with its frontal armor, 150 millimeters of frontal hull and turret armor, with 150 side turret armor and 150 rear hull and turret armor as well. Meaning it doesn't really matter if someone shoots you in the front or shoots you in the back. You're still pretty much going to bounce the majority of lower tiered tanks, and at least have a chance, especially if you angle your armor at bouncing higher tiered vehicles. The weakness of this tank is the side hull armor, which is 70 millimeters thick, so take advantage of that. Flank this behemoth and take it out effectively. And now this is where the Japanese heavies start to get very interesting. You've got a choice of either using a 100mm gun here, which is very competitive for a Tier 6 heavy tank. I would liken this to the KV-5's gun, or probably better to compare it with a T-150, using that 107mm on the T-150. However, guys, this OI wants to actually be a very famous Soviet tank. It wants to be a KV-2, and that's because it can use this 150mm howitzer. It fires a measly 2.4 rounds a minute, but it does have 121mm of AP penetration, 150 of heat penetration, or 75mm of high explosive ammunition, doing between 700 and 910 damage, depending on which ammunition you manage to penetrate. Although you're not going to be able to do that very accurately, 0.58 accuracy and 3.7 seconds aim time. That makes the OI very similar to the KV-2's 152mm that we can see here. Now let's just compare them just quickly. So the OI has a rate of fire disadvantage, although a slight one. One thing that's very important to notice here, however, is that the AP penetration is better on the OI, but the high explosive is not better, and every single KV-2 driver out there knows that more or less you're only firing high explosive rounds. The 11mm of penetration less on the OI will be pretty brutal for it. But to make up for it, you have slightly better accuracy and better aim time. And there's no doubt, at least in my mind, that the armor on the OI is significantly better than that of the KV-2. So look out, World of Tanks, Big Mama is coming, and she wants your hit points. Next, what I thought was weird gets even crazier. We're looking at the Oni. This thing is absolutely gigantic, and again has 2 tank boobs on it that unfortunately are not functional anymore, or never were functional. Let's not go there, let's just focus on what's good about this tank, and that is the whopping 1,550 hit points, making the Oni the highest hit point tank at Tier 7 in the game. Now surprisingly, the Oni has shed 50 tons compared to the OI. But it still keeps that 1,200 horsepower engine, which means that it's got a much better specific power ratio of 50%. Unfortunately, the top speed limit keeps falling down the tech tree, and now we're down to 25 kilometers an hour with an 18 degrees a second traverse speed, and an 18 degree a second turret traverse speed means these things are not very mobile at all, or flexible to turn quickly and re-engage targets. However, you have 200mm of frontal turret armor, 175mm of frontal hull armor, 70 at the side, which is a bit of a weakness, but 150 at the back of the turret and the hull. And that means that the Oni can weather a storm, especially from equal and lower tier targets, allowing it to go to town with, in my opinion, the best gun to use on the tank, and that is this 105mm, which fires 5 rounds a minute of 330 alpha damage, 190mm of penetration with its standard rounds, 215 on its premium rounds, but unfortunately the accuracy is very bad at 0.42 and the aim time is pretty darn bad for a Tier 7 heavy at 3.3. What makes this worse is the fact that the Oni cannot use vertical stabilizers. And so watch out for that. Basically the best way to take an Oni is to force it to turn its gun, hopefully get the side of the tank. And if you keep moving, it shouldn't be able to get the aim time to accurately hit you. But if it does catch you, you are going to feel it. That 330 alpha damage is going to pick you apart very quickly indeed. I think this tank is certainly one to look out for and might be one of the better Japanese heavies coming in patch 9.10. So moving on to, for me, a little bit of a disappointment. The Oh-Ho is a bit of a joke. Yeah, no pun intended there. It's only got 150 more hit points than the Oni. Wow, what's that? 1,700? Tier 8? God, I was hoping to see some crazy numbers coming in here. It weighs 23 tons more, has the same horsepower, same top speed limit of 25 kilometers an hour. It's got slightly better traverse speed, but not really worth mentioning, which means that, again, this tank finds it very hard to re-engage opponents. However, the armor gets thicker and thicker. We're up to 200 millimeters of hull armor. 105 at the side and 150 at the rear, which means that this tank can sidescrape a lot better than the Oni. And your turret is 200, 200, 200. Doesn't matter where you get shot, really, you're going to be able to contest a lot of guns, especially equal and lower tier tanks. So gun-wise, it's where it starts to get a little bit disappointing for me. I was hoping that the Oh-Ho at tier 8 would have a rather meaty gun. But its alpha damage is the same, even though its rate of fire has gone up quite a lot. At the moment, this has only got 2 types of ammunition, AP and high explosive. I really think that this tank is going to need some premium rounds wargaming, otherwise how is this going to deal with tier 10 tanks? 215 millimeters of penetration. A mouse is going to laugh at you. An E100 is going to laugh at you. Even an E75 is going to laugh at you unless you're able to get its side or its rear. And so hopefully wargaming don't force us to play with a 15 centimeter DUP gun at tier 8. That's really not going to do very well. But remember guys, this is the test server. Everything is subject to change. So next we're moving up to one of my favorite picks of the Japanese heavies. This is the Type 4 Heavy. It's coming in at tier 9. And you know me, I love my tier 9 tanks, and the Type 4 Heavy is probably going to be no exception. Again, this tank is going to have the most hit points, I believe, by 50. It's got 2,050 hit points, which is more than the Tortoise. It weighs 162 tons, meaning that this is the second heaviest vehicle in the game after the Mouse. But this all does come at the benefit of having the thickest frontal armor on any tier 9 tank. 250 millimeters of hull armor, 250 millimeters of turret armor. Is absolutely incredible when you consider that the VK4502 Alps B has 200 millimeters of frontal armor. The Mouse also has 200 millimeters of frontal hull armor, and that allows the Type 4 Heavy to butcher its way everything apart from the highest penetration guns. And talking about high penetration guns, this vehicle gets 140 millimeter. This is a completely novel gun in World of Tanks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 140mm 600 alpha damage gun. This 140mm might not fire quickly. It's got 2.88 rounds a minute rate of fire, which is painfully slow when you consider that some tier 9 tank destroyers, such as the T-30, get a better rate of fire than that, even though they've got 150 more alpha damage. And furthermore, maybe you thought that the E75 had a bad rate of fire. It fires 3.82 rounds a minute, but it has 490 alpha damage. Nevertheless, when we amalgamate these together, that means that the Type 4 Heavy is simply not going to kill anything very quickly. It has 8.3% worse DPM than the E75, which is already really low on the DPM meters. Nevertheless, if anything is going to be able to survive long enough to dish out some punishment, it is going to be the Type 4 Heavy. And that's what it's all about with this tank, having the armor that you need to be able to survive, to rip apart your opponents, albeit slowly with this 140mm gun. And now, possibly the moment you have all been waiting for, we're going to take a look at the Tier 10 Japanese Heavy. Oh, wait, it's pretty much the same. Oh, that was a bit of a disappointment. I was hoping that it was going to be some kind of Godzilla tank, but no, it's just the Type 5 Heavy. It's more or less the same as what I've just explained. Interestingly, this tank loses 10 tons, it gains 5 kilometers top speed limit. Unfortunately, it gains 10 millimeters of frontal hull armor and turret armor, and 10 millimeters of side turret armor as well. Which means that the Type 5 Heavy has the thickest armor of any heavy tank in the game. That's not to say that it doesn't have some weak points that I might be highlighting to you guys in some full gameplay reviews. Now, if you were hoping for some ultra special gun for this tier 10 monstrosity, well, you're going to be disappointed with that as well. All you're getting really is better aim time, better accuracy, and a better rate of fire with this gun. It's more of the same as you had with the Type 4 Heavy tank. This thing does have the second highest hit points in the game as well at 2,800. That's more than the E100 and slightly less than the Mouse. This thing really does play a lot like an E100/Mouse kind of hybrid. With its 600 alpha damage, it's able to rip apart its opponents, and hopefully use this 260mm of armor to stay in the game long enough to do so. And so that about wraps it up for the Japanese Heavy. Their ideology is big guns, big armor, big hit points, heavy weight. And that should make them some of the most resilient tanks in the game coming in patch 9.10. I feel there's a nice mix coming throughout the tech tree. You've got this fairly standard, strong tier 5 heavy tank entry. You've got this troll of a vehicle, this kind of Japanese KV-2 coming in at tier 6. This all-round gargantuan tier 7 heavy tank that should be able to pick apart equal and lower tiered opponents. A cut-down version of a tier 10 monster. I think the Type 4 Heavy is going to be one of the most powerful vehicles at tier 9. And then finally the Type 5 Heavy, which I just don't feel it's going to have as big of an impact in the game as I really was hoping it was. I don't think it's going to have much of an impact as each of the other tanks which I've just described will have at their respective tiers. And so hopefully you guys have enjoyed this preview. If you have, please consider giving this video a like down below, and why not go and tell your friends? I'd really appreciate it. It would help the channel out immensely. And don't be too concerned if there's been a lack of model analysis and gameplay in this video, as I'm going to be doing videos, hopefully on at least 2 or 3 of the vehicles in the upcoming weeks. So stay tuned to this channel for tips and tricks about how you can take down these gargantuan vehicles in the next patch, and some previews of what you can achieve with them in the gameplay. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the new Japanese Heavies. Are you disappointed with them? Are they about what you thought they would be? Can you simply not wait to play them and you're going to start to save up some free experience, so maybe you can skip through a few of the modules? Do you think they're overpowered, underpowered, or maybe about right in the middle? Do you think these things are going to be an absolute pain in the backside to take out, or are they going to be your next gigantic experience pinata for you? Let me know what you guys think, and as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.